Hi, Jacob. Could you tell us three most outstanding things about you?
Three most outstanding things about me. Well, I work in the customer service world, which requires you to be, very empathetic, to be able to understand the customer's needs and be able to listen. That also makes you a pretty good, people manager, I've found. I am, passionate about what I do. I really get into, in making sure that, everything I output or anybody that I work with, they're successful, or try my hardest to make everything successful. And then finally, I find myself to be very efficient. I can operate and do a lot of different things at the same time, and that obviously shows through in the work and trying to help my customers be as efficient as we possibly can as well, operationalize everything we can.
Okay, customer success, could you elaborate what does that mean? Because it could mean customer service, like someone you call say, hey, I'm not happy about the service.
Right.
Or it could be mean about how to find ideal customers. So how do you think customer success fit in here?
It's all of the above. Literally anything that will drive the success of the customer is, to the solution that you're selling. That is under the umbrella of customer success. So it will get segregated and divided up depending on what's actually needed, such as like you mentioned, customer support, customer service, there's solutions teams, and then just people who are out doing customer success work. And it all in all is about identifying what the needs of your customer, how they're utilizing the solution that you're having. Are they getting the best return for it? Rather than using one thing out of the 10 things that it does, I mean, they're now paying for a lot of things they don't necessarily need. So customer success can help extrapolate that information from your customers so you can then develop more efficient products. You can understand where their pain points are and then address those. Sometimes that opens up your eyes into a whole new market or a whole new area that you might be able to expand your service offering out to, right? Develop a new feature, develop a new product that will help, capture some of that other market share, or at the very least, give a better return for your existing client base, so therefore you get that renewal when the time comes, because tracking down new customers is hard. Doesn't matter where it is, it's very difficult to find those customers, so you want to make sure that you're holding on to them. And if you're building a subscription-based product, that's a very huge part of it, is to ensure that your customers are satisfied, understanding the value that they're receiving within utilizing the solution that you're selling them, and then just renewing whenever that time comes to renew. So that's really what you're out there trying to do, is drive that success of the customer.
You mentioned subscription a little bit. We know customer success is big in the SaaS industry.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate a little bit on at what stage customer success will get involved in the SaaS industry?
I mean, in all honesty, I am a firm believer. So true customer success organizations aren't really truly going to be in place until you have customers. However, that mindset for the entire team from the very first, you're an engineer who has this brilliant idea to solve the world's problems with some AI solution, whatever it is, right? You need to be thinking about that customer, what the problems of that customer are, because that's why you're building it. You're building it for the customer. So from ideation, you should already have a customer success mindset going on, right? Understanding the customer's needs. What are they going to pay you money for? Do they have another solution that operates better, cheaper, more efficient, or some other big vendor out there already, on the precipice of developing that thing, that now you spent an hour or a year of your life building and investing your time and money into, and it's now Google built it. You're like, now what do I do, Right. So my opinion is from the get-go, and it helps instill very good practices in getting that feedback from your customer and just building those processes early on.
Yeah, so actually before I talk to Jacob, I always feel like a lot of things he talks about in customer success belongs to strategy. So actually we have a strategy people here. So Cai work at several big tech companies as strategy team. So I'm curious, how does strategy collaborate with the customer success team together? Do you have any past experience on that?
Yeah, so I mean, talking about strategic growth, because we all want to grow our businesses, right? We all want to be that unicorn with $1 billion, right? So in a strategic approach, you need a lot of understanding of what's happening, where the pieces are going, you know, able to look out 30 moves ahead on the chessboard or whatever. So as your product strategy grows, that would be obviously within your market strategy, you're involving customer success, because customer success is out there talking to the customers, you know, and interviewing them and understanding their pain points and identifying your differentiator that's actually going to be the thing that your salespeople will do. So strategy is very important, and customer success should definitely be part of that conversation as you're doing your strategy sessions and your growth planning, all the way to what your intended exit plan, right? It needs to be part of that entire process.
Yeah. I personally collaborate a lot with customer success team or like customer support team.
Yeah.
They're a little bit different, but they're all like at the front line of all the customer feedback. So they have the first-hand information, which as a strategy person, we really need.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, and I've pulled out information both from customer success, because you're right, they are different between support and success. Support is a bit more reactive. There's a problem, let me fix it. Success, the idea would be to get in there and identify those problems before they become problems, right? Or utilizing that reactive, you know, oh, here's 50 tickets on this problem, they can go and talk to their customers and say, hey, this has been going on over here, I want to make sure you don't come into those issues. So you know, they're related, and those have heavily to do in building out your strategy. And just looking at that data will help you identify areas, you know, where improvement could be made, right?
Yeah. Awesome. Could you go through a little bit your startup experience?
Sure.
We know you work at several startups through your career.
Yeah, we actually want to hear on what you did at CrowdStrike as well. So it's impressive journey from early growth stage to later after they go on public.
So my background's in business. I moved over to CrowdStrike in the early days. They had just finished their Series B funding round. Early stage. I was employee 97 or something like that at the company up here in Kirkland. And I was the second person on the success team, or the support team is really what it was at the time. We didn't develop out success yet. So the early stages was early, right? They had the MVP, they were already commercialized it, and we had a couple of customers. In fact, about a month before I started, we got our largest customer to date. And it was an entire weekend of sitting there like, is it going to break? Is it going to work? You know, trying to, you know, because we were that early in a stage, we weren't ready for 80,000 endpoints to be delivered out across our with our cloud solution, right? So really getting in there and just understanding the business and understanding that business model was how we were able to grow. So I assisted in building out the support team, understanding all the methodology to communicate with the customer, escalation paths, all that stuff that the customers would actually need, especially with the product that was becoming, you know, more commercialized and able to hit into the enterprise industry, the different enterprise customers. And eventually, the team grew, right? As the product grew and the functionalities grew, so did our team, and that just is the way it was. So we did a lot of growth planning and things like that to sit down and say, all right, well, this is, you know, sometimes we knew our budget, other times we didn't. And we would be like, okay, we are going to need 20 people to accomplish this amount of work. And we would just sort of operationalize ourselves as we grew. Then we had plenty of strategy and growth sessions with our product team to make sure that we were understanding the roadmap and the future vision of the company, so we can incorporate processes and people and tools that we may need as we were growing through each stage. By the time we IPO'd in 2019, oh my God, we were, I want to say, around 150 people globally, maybe a little bit more, and we were onboarding easily 30 people a month. It was kind of an insane amount of onboarding of new, and that's just on my team, not within the company. That's just on my post-sales organization. So we had a full-fledged customer success organization and customer support. And again, it was in a global capacity. But yeah, we had to strategize and to be able to facilitate and take care of that many people and however many more customers at that point, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of customers, millions of endpoints that we were needing to take care of. And then I left in early 2022 to go and kind of pursue other things, and here I am now. At that point, we were roughly around 250. Our customer success organization, we had a premium support offering that we were covering around 100 million ARR just on premium support, just to be able to offer over. And that was access to customer success managers and things like that, so to have a bit even more better experience. So yeah.
Grow from
2 to 250. Yeah, I don't even know, because you start losing track of where everyone's at that point. So.
Yeah, so I heard you start to work with more even earlier stage companies after you left CrowdStrike. Yeah. So how do you compare those two experiences?
So CrowdStrike was heavy growth. There was during a time, they led the market, right? So we had the privilege of pretty deep pockets during the growth stages, which is a nice thing. We can go and do in-person trainings and all of that stuff. When I left CrowdStrike, I went to another startup that had bootstrapped themselves, which is great, right? A different experience for myself. They never went through any funding rounds. They just went ahead and found their customers, and they did extraordinarily well. For a decade, they had been doing this. However, they were approaching a time to where their product line in their offering was not growing to the state that they wanted it to grow. They kind of stagnated a little bit, and they really wanted to expand that out. So they came up with a brand new product offering that they had done all the appropriate research and had completed that, but then we're about to push that out. So they were anticipating heavy growth. I went over there to help them build out their customer success organization. And in doing so, I did a lot of that same process. Understood the customer journey, understood where the pain points are, in a lot of different capacity, planning and things like that of what would be needed. A really interesting output of that, we talk about, gathering data from like the support team, right? I had observed, their support organization was phenomenal. But I was taking a look at their past tickets, and they had 4 main product offerings. And I noticed only one of them had any questions on it ever, like in the last 3 years. I'm like, okay, well, these other 3 the products, they're either extremely good and nobody has any problems or questions on them, or they're not being used. Right. So I started interviewing customers, and it came out. I found out they didn't. They found those other 3 products. They didn't offer the solution they thought they were going to get. They were too complicated to use. They didn't have time to figure it out. It was too, there was no good documentation on it. So I had some really easy, actionable items to go and say, all right, well, let's update the documentation. Let's build some trainings. Let's get in front of the customers, start teaching them how to use this to get that ROI. In doing that alone, it assisted in our renewals to basically take a spike, because we had people who were like, I don't need this other product and I'm not getting enough ROI on the rest that I'm paying for. But we were able to start to see those renewals come over. So at the very least, we were maintaining our customer base. Our new product offering, was in the works to be developed, and that now, offered a nice clean slate for us to go and expand into that new territory, that new market share, and start, capitalizing on it as best as we possibly could.
Yeah, so that's a wonderful example of how you craft the customer journey just from small details of customer feedbacks. So now I kind of see the customer success start from who's the customer and how to onboard them if they are interested in the product, and how to make sure they are satisfied and their feedback is getting heard into developing new features. Yep. However, for some more earlier startups, for example, maybe in the super pre-seed stage, they don't have a customer success team. Right. The founder or maybe the CPO, I don't know who they are, but they need to do everything themselves. Yep. Right. So if they don't have someone like you, what are some things they can do?
So I actually have done courses, but I've spoken on this topic several times. So this is idea validation, customer validation. When you're down in that early pre-seed stage, you have, again, that brilliant idea to where, you're going to save the world with this idea. It is a little bit tricky to kind of navigate that, but the very first thing you need to really start defining is who has this problem, right? So as you're sort of coming up with these issues, say, oh yeah, every single industry, doesn't matter what it is, you are using a product or a service to solve a problem. That's the way it is. I'm hungry, I want a cheeseburger, McDonald's solves that problem for me, right? So that's really what it is. You work in, I don't know, you're a developer of some AI product, right? And this is for this specific industry. I am going to go talk to people in that industry that I believe to have the problem and confirm my hypothesis. So it's a hypothesis on the ideal customer to what problem they actually have, and then your solution is obviously going to be crafted around what's going to solve their problem, really, is what it is. So it does get a little tricky, and for those companies and those founders who don't really know how to do that, that is definitely a thought experiment. You're going to need to kind of sit down, chase down people in that world that you believe to have that problem, strike up a conversation with them. 10, 15 minutes, just discuss that issue that you think they're having, saying, hey, how are you solving for this now? And they're going to tell you, oh, I use Microsoft Excel, which is probably Microsoft Excel because everybody uses Microsoft Excel for everything. I use this to solve this issue. It's very cumbersome. Oh, I built a macro for that or whatever, right? And you're like, all right, well, if this was an automated or if AI was able to solve that for you with a click of a button, would that be something that you would be interested in? And they'd be like, oh, yes, it would be so great. I can't wait until such and such takes care of that. Or if I had an app to take care of that, whatever. Now you're validating that this person or this group, this profession has that problem and that you can build a solution to solve that, right? And you're just kind of taking baby steps, gathering that information. And you want to start small. You want your feature set to be fairly small. And really just laser focused on the issue that you see in front of you. And then down the road, you'll have that opportunity, hopefully, to build out to your grand vision, your grand idea of what, to be that major competitor in the field. But, keeping things precise, laser focused to the issue that you're attempting to solve and to people that will actually pay you money for that solution when the time comes.
Yeah, but the problem with the user interviews, like you said, laser focus becomes really hard because people start to throw in different requests on you. I work with a lot of founders. They actually want to develop millions of features all into one product. And it's impossible for early startup to do that. So how do you pick and choose what are valid requests? And I know that money test is how much you are willing to pay, but sometimes it's hard to decide which one direction to go. And the pivoting, how often is it too often?
So this is where it goes heavily in strategy, right? You're going to need to start your strategy nice and early. And maybe you can have 100 features in your overall feature set. That might end up being what it is, but that will not be in your MVP. If you're building 100 features in your MVP, you're spending too much time and energy into that. So those early conversations, you're going to be talking with your friends, your family, people, you're likely already in that world, in that space. So go and reach out to your network and connections. Say, hey, can I have 15 minutes? I just want to validate an idea with you. And start talking about the problem itself. Do not talk about your solution. In fact, in that first conversation, you're not necessarily bringing up, oh, I'm thinking about developing this thing. I just want to know, you have this problem, let's talk about this problem for a bit. Go grab a drink with them, whatever loosen up a little bit, kind of understand where their pain points are, take that back, incorporate that into your idea, and say, all right, well, here's the 10 features that would solve that problem. Is there any way I can make it even smaller, even more focused? And just keep doing that as often as you need, as much as you need. Obviously, we are in a speed game. We want to kind of go fast, and we want to, make our $1 billion today instead of tomorrow. But, taking that step back, understanding who has this problem, where I'm building it, and then that'll help, clarify who you should be talking to, right? So you'll also come across, and you're going to find my hypothesis was wrong. The person I'm speaking with right now, they're not going to be the right demographic that I'm going after. I have an example of one that I'm currently doing right now. I found this is not the crew of people like this affluent business owners who are tech savvy or something like that. And I don't necessarily want that crew, because I found I need just tech savvy people who are business owners. They don't need to be affluent or something like that. So you can start now shifting your focus over to different demographics, different people to talk to, and that's going to be your initial target market that you're going to start going after when you're ready to start selling.
That's a good experience sharing. I actually heard other founder experience sharing start to talk about problem first, and then later on, if that's the right solution, then talk to your customer.
Exactly.
Because a lot of times the hypothesis or the solution are actually wrong, not actually solving the problem. So we talk a little bit about how to find early customer, like the first customer, and we know you have a lot of experience in the growth stage. So when sometimes founder already have like first or second customer, but they want to grow the customer basis, how they can kind of grow their customer basis and make a bigger customer basis they can have in the future.
Sure. Yeah. So if they already have their first, the first couple customers are the most difficult ones, but if they are buying your product, they trust you enough to use the product that you have, and they trust you enough to give you money to say, hey, I believe in your business, right? Especially if you start getting into like softwares that end up in their business and integrate into their other systems, and also cybersecurity, all that stuff has kind of come into play. But anyway, you already have an example of what that customer looks like, because you've already sold to at least 2, 3, 4 people, however many. So you're going to want to spend a bit more time interviewing those individuals, and hopefully, as they are early customers, you got them in one way or another. You gave them something for free. You had them beta tested, whatever that was, right? Or they're your dad, and they also work in the industry as well. They can help you define that. They're also, anyone within the industry knows other people in the same industry. You now have a window into like who else? Do you know anyone else that might be interested in using this product too? You think of those NPS scores that you have, would you recommend this software to a friend? If you finish something, I know we've all seen it. It's a ridiculous question, but that's the reason the question exists, right? You're trying to find other people who, I am confident enough to talk and talk up your product, become an advocate for that product. If I found myself on the Reddit forum or something for this product, I'm going to go ahead and say, use, such and such product, right? That's the idea. And then those are going to be your window into expanding out your network, right? And then there's all sorts of social media, things like that, to really kind of break into the market even more so, especially when you're underfunded. You don't have a lot of money for ads or whatever else, right? A lot of social media marketing, all that stuff kind of adds up in terms of cost. So, you gotta start considering all that. But breaking in would be with your existing market for sure.
Yes, so we talk about when the founder first needs to be responsible for the customer journey, and then you start to have 2 to 3 people after you have your first few customers who signed up and put the money in. But when is the right time to scale the team?
The right time to scale the team, you should. It's definitely one of those things when you are starting to gain traction with your customers, and or looking to build your burn down rate for your funding, right? So you were funded maybe a seed round and you have a X amount of dollars. Where are you going to put that money? Many people put it into development and sales and marketing, right? But you need to be able to support that in the customer success capacity. So if you are investing in only engineering and marketing in those initial rounds, you need to make sure that expectation is for those individuals doing it. They're likely going to be doing that initial support for the customers. You could bring somebody over like myself who would be able to either outsource or facilitate what those processes and programs look like, and ensure that we're constantly engaging with the customers. And then that individual would be that person to bring on those first hires as needed to more or less grow the team out in a strategic fashion. or you know, they do it themselves, right? That's a possibility as well. It really depends on the overall growth, because you know, sometimes you're going to grow like a weed. Other times you're going to be like, this isn't working out the way I really hoped it would, or I hit a brick wall and I need to do something else. And that's going to happen. You're going to have your ebbs and flows in business, and you just have to plan for it as best as you can, and yeah, just put the people in where you need them.
So I heard you talk about the sales team. Usually they are first hired before the customer success got brought in. But I sometimes feel like there's undefined line between sales and customer success. What's your experience working with a sales team, and how do you guys collaborate together?
Sure.
So we have the strategy, sales, and customer success.
So my previous life, I worked in business, I had mentioned. I was a sales manager. I was a general manager for some supply houses. And there is no customer success, right? You do the transaction and you're done. Right? There's no, and you do want that repeat business. Working for myself, for example, I would need to continue those relationships with like architects and designers, you know, because I want their repeat business. Same concept when you're moving into you know, a SaaS-based company or some technology. You need to have those continued businesses. Customer success originally was under the umbrella of account management or sales, right? That's where it began. And that is a skill set that salespeople can bring to the table. So generally, those initial customer success responsibilities are held by the sales team or the account management until you're able to separate them. That dividing line, in my opinion, is pre-sales and post-sales. Pre-sales, you're in charge of cold calling. You're in charge of lead generation, which is probably marketing. You're in charge of chasing down the opportunity and closing the sale. Maybe doing the proof of concept, proof of value, whatever you want to call it. That initial stage with the customer where you're offering it, you're going to help them set it all up, make sure they're successful. And then the handoff to the post-sales team, which would be a customer success, right? Support. They're now, hey, I don't need to be, I'm going to go and work on this new customer, and you guys are in good hands over there. And then that new customer, that newly closed customer would be handed off to the customer success manager and the support team, depending on what they are doing, right? How the setup is. And then they're just driven to success. As the sales cycle goes around and there's a renewal to come up, that sales team would be reintroduced into the process, and they likely are still contacting the customer regularly. Hopefully they are, because they need to maintain that relationship, right? But that's all something that you do within the life of the customer, right? Loop in the sales team again, make sure that constant contact is there, and that you're driving the success of the customer with anything they need.
So that's kind of a cycle, like all the way sales conduct the whole transaction, all the way from leads generation to the sign up the agreement, and then everything after, like onboarding, training, customer experience, like kind of customer success, responsible for that.
Exactly.
So I'm a little bit curious, because you have a lot of experience in the customer success area. What are some common mistakes or issues you've seen in like early stage startup who have made in the customer success area?
I can talk on that. So trust. So founders, they're geniuses. They know how to code. They likely know some about business because they've gotten their business stood up and they're doing a good job. They learned a lot from mentors, right? Taken a lot of courses. There will be a point in time to when you do not want to service your customer anymore as a founder. It's going to be an interesting. Not that you don't necessarily want to, but you just can't. You need to run your business. You want to put your focus on your responsibilities, what your capacity, what you're capable, like what you're trained to do. Right? You are an engineer, you're going to be running the engineering team, you're going to be the CTO or whatever. But a lot of pitfalls that happen are they try to hold on to their little baby too long. And they'll go ahead and hire out a team, and the team will do fantastic, but when problems occur, they jump in and then they overmine all the processes and all the people that they have underneath them or that they've hired. So they're not instilling that trust with the team that they've hired, and instead saying, I'm the only one who's able to solve this problem. If you guys mess up, we're going to lose the business. whatever goes through their heads, right? And I don't blame them. You know, they've built it. They've spent 2, 3, 4 years, however long, however many hundreds of thousands of dollars to develop and hire and, you know, do all of this stuff. So I get it, right? It makes sense why they would feel this way and want to continually own it. But there is a time they need to step back and they need to say, hey, I trust my team. They know what they're doing. And if they don't know what they're doing, they're able to ask. I gave them the means to do that, how to learn it, how to figure it out. This is the process to go forward, right? This is how, if a customer has a problem, they are going to follow this process. I trust that process. And if there is anything that I need to know, I will be informed of that, right? So definitely trust is one of those things, to trust the team that you're hiring, trust your own instincts, you know. I could think of one quick story as we sort of are chatting here, is I was asked this exact same scenario. I was asked by the founder, I don't want to be woken up at 2 a.m. anymore. I'm like, great, that's easy. So I built out the escalation process. This is how you need to, you know, if a customer has a problem in the 2 in the morning, they do these steps. And this is who you call, this is how engineering gets woken up, this is how we deal with this fire. I built it all out, built the trainings out to be able to do some skill gap analysis and stuff like that. I did it all, put it out to the team. Not even the next day that we're sitting on the phone with our largest customer, and they, the founder is like, oh yeah, as we're ending the call, oh yeah, by the way, if you need anything ever, day or night, call me 24/7. I'm like, dude, we literally just went over this. We have this. This would have been the best opportunity for you to tell the customer, you know, this is how we're going to deal with it, you know, and you have this advocate, this customer who already trusts you. Use that as the opportunity to say, hey, we want your level of service to be at the same level you've already been experienced. Just as if you've called me at 2 in the morning, you're going to get that same quality answer. You're going to have your problem resolved, whatever that is. And this was the opportunity to do that, and the founder went straight off and just said, call me. We're trying to solve this for you. So, yeah, that is definitely one of those things, and you just have to learn how to let go a little bit. And it's kind of difficult to do, I think, in times.
So you basically help the founder to build the whole customer success workflow at that stage.
Yes.
Could you elaborate a little bit, like what a typical customer success flow looks like in a like early stage startup?
Sure. It's a lot of chatting with the customer. So you're going to be doing that forever. But as you grow, and you know, you can't hire one customer success manager per customer. It's just, you know, it's not in the budget, regardless of how expensive your product is. So initially, you're going to have a lot more back and forth. And those are you do need to facilitate that with the customer themselves, so as to not overburden them with unnecessary calls. I'm going to talk to you every other day, like that's too frequently, right? Yeah. But maybe you talk to them once a month, once a quarter, whatever really is needed within the offering that you have. Do they need a bit more hands-on, you know? So early stages is a fantastic opportunity for you to pull as much information as you possibly can from those customers. One, it makes them feel important, which they are, of course, but they're like, ooh, I'm part of this. I'm part of this buzziness. When we were at CrowdStrike, building that out, a lot of those early customers became massive advocates for us. You can read some of those articles from early, and you probably can figure out who I'm talking about on some of them. Word of mouth, yeah. Right? They get into those PR articles, you know, the Wired magazine or whatever. We have this you know, testimonial, really 5-page testimonial from a large finance firm or whatever, right? You start to gather those, and the customer themselves become part of the product, right? If they're like, and then you can offer them like beta testing or something like that. You can say, hey, would you help us test this out? They're like, ooh, I helped make that product, you know, and maybe you throw them a discount or throw in the product for free, for whatever it is, right? But that's how you do it. So in the beginning, talking to your customer as regularly as you possibly can, involving them in that initial, you know, testing phases and things like that, including them in that, asking for testimonials, making sure you get in there and asking them for those. Where can we have, you know, more, like what else are you having problems with that we can get in there and try to help you with? Just talk to your customers. As you mature, you're going to grow your processes out, you know, maybe you're more geographically spread. All of that's going to impact in how you are now approaching it. You will need to build out a structure eventually. Right. And really that depends on your capacity and again, how frequently, how much feedback are you getting, how much work do you have to do after you speak to them? Because you should be taking their feedback and doing everything you can to incorporate that into your product, into your features, into your processes, how you're interacting, right? You need to incorporate everything you have. Otherwise, you're just listening and saying, all right, thanks, and then you're just moving on to the next one, but you're not really getting anything out of it, you know? I don't know if all of us have, I think, worked for some sort of corporation before, and they take a survey, and you're like, all right, well, that was great, but what happened with that survey? There was nothing really came out of it, right? And customers can feel the same way if you're not actioning on anything that they're actually telling you.
Yeah.
So.
We give them a title, design partners nowadays, right?
Yeah, design partners, exactly. Yep.
So when was that word first show up?
That's a good question. I actually don't know when that first came. It's pretty recent, I want to say. It's definitely a method for us to engage more with our customers and again get them feeling good, right, and helping us out as best as we can.
Well, turn customers into partners.
Right. Yes, of course.
Yeah, I feel that's what the customer success team are trying to do. So now you are helping some startups bootstrap the early stage. So I'm curious, what are some success stories you've been encountered with?
In some of these earlier stages, it's been a lot of more just mentorship and just talking because, coming in my capacity is generally a tiny bit later in the stage because you're building out teams. But just in speaking one-to-one, validating ideas. I've been doing quite a bit of that recently in speaking with different customer bases and demographics of customers and things like that. But those are helping some of the people I've been speaking with better define the solution they're attempting to build, right? And in terms of successes on those, it really is, yes, I've had 1 or 2 MVPs actually move forward, and then more importantly, I've had those solution ideas not proceed. So then that founder was able to pivot to a different idea completely because that one, like, hey, our initial thought process didn't work out. So now saving them from wasting all that time and energy and money. But yeah, in terms of successes, it's definitely bringing on a product and moving that to the MVP stage to get them ready for funding rounds and potentially bootstrapping their own customers, right? But that's all stages that you should be doing. If you're not doing appropriate customer discovery, idea discovery, they say, and I don't know where this statistic comes from, but they say 90% of startups fail because they didn't do a proper customer discovery. They didn't do whatever that is, right? So if you don't have your idea properly defined and your customer properly defined, then you're not gonna. You could succeed. It happens, but it's less likely. So really helping people kind of navigate that stage has been my bread and butter these days. And then, just kind of working one-to-one with people.
We know the number one startup failed reason is solving the wrong problem.
Yep.
The product is not needed by people.
Yep.
So could you give us one example how you helped maybe just one project figure out who's the right customer and develop something that people actually are willing to pay for?
Sure. Yeah. So this would have to be with an existing company. It wasn't actually during the ideation phase because this process is exactly the same. Whether you're doing this from the very beginning or you already have an established business and whatever, you're still getting out there. You need to interview and you need to be understanding what your customers are actually needing. But in this specific example, it was to develop a patching tool, like Microsoft patching, in an AI capacity. So having AI be able to understand your overall the topography of your network and your overall environment, to then facilitate what patches needed within what operating system within whatever time frame actually happened. So our initial thought process on this was to say, all right, well, I need to go talk to like system architects at large firms, usually older firms that have kind of set in their ways a little bit. Maybe they have a bunch of server farms all over the place, and they might have 100,000 endpoints they need to patch every single month because it's just the way it is. So we did a bit of customer discovery with our own customer base and just started asking them, how are you patching? How are you understanding, what needs to be patched and where and when and what have you? in almost all of them, we're using the Microsoft tools, SCCM, things like that. There was a couple that had some cloud solutions that helped them kind of uncover. Tenable, I think, is one of them that kind of helped understand that. But really just understanding the tools that were being used. Then we get in and say, all right, well, here's the tools that are doing it. And we start doing essentially market research is what we begin doing, and really understanding where those problems lie and what the customers are having. And then just start navigating down the market research with our customer interactions and things like that. So what happened there is we did end up with that, we're going to proceed to try to develop this, and the engineering went off, and as far as I know, I haven't checked in on them, but as far as I know, the development is going well, and they're going to be putting that into their product line in the next couple of quarters, hopefully. So
yeah. Cool. Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. So we might have some audience who are interested in getting help from you, maybe consulting services, or talk to you. So how would be the best way to reach to you?
Yeah, so they can just reach out direct via my email or my website. It's Client Climb Advisors. I have my email is Jacob at Client Climb Advisors, and we can probably post it someplace to easily get to. But yeah, and I work at all stage startups, as well as obviously management consulting, I guess. If you're taking on a new team, you're a brand new manager, I've been working on that as well, because again, growing your team and doing so is very important, because if you're not facilitating your team growth the same you're doing your product growth and your customer growth, then you're going to fail one way or the other. You won't be able to properly grow your company if you're not growing your team, and you need to grow your team with proper people management. So I help facilitate that as well.
Yeah, so my understanding is you are now open to working with super early stage of projects up to maybe growth stage.
To growth stage, even beyond. When you get beyond, though, it's more operationalizing what you already have. So you're likely already have these organizations out there, and you're like, I'm kind of what I did over at one of these other startups, right? I had spoken on they brought me in to build out their customer success org, right? They understand we're about to grow. We need a growth planning for our people. Our growth what tools do we need to implement? So you hit that Series A, Series B, or maybe you have 100 customers sitting, or 50 customers, and I need to operationalize this. I can get in there and help operationalize that as well, and help those growth all the way through exit and beyond if needed.
That sounds great. That sounds awesome. You're helping them all the way from the initial stage
Yeah.
to the kind of like later stage to figure out the operational problem and solve it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so if you are startup founders or working on some early stage or growth stage projects, you know who to go. So please contact Jacob, and thanks, Jacob, for your time and being on the Upturn app.
Oh, no, it's great.
Yeah,
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank
you.
Thanks for coming.